Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our second virtual roundtable of 2023. As a member of the Edison Awards universe, you're going to see various invitations to roundtables. You're going to see some insights from info pieces, and you're going to see a number of other exclusive opportunities coming into your inbox throughout the year. If there are topics that you'd like to see covered, or if you have some processes, tips, articles that you want to share with the Edison Award universe, feel free to send them my way. We love any sort of feedback from you. This universe was designed to encourage collaboration and continued learning. So we're here to help one another be successful, and we want to make sure we encourage that as much as possible. I'm Lindsay Birch, Director of Marketing and Client Engagement at the Edison Awards. We also have Jean Bradley on the call. She's the Director of Operations. Jean will be making sure that the WebEx is working properly. She's obviously admitting people in, making sure the chat is going well. And she handles everything operations for the Edison Award and our annual event. So if you're looking to attend the 2023 Edison Awards in Fort Myers, Florida next month, registration closes tomorrow at midnight. We anticipate about 550 business executives, venture capitalists, chief innovation officers, and innovators from 23 countries and across every industry. So it's going to be an awesome event. And for those on the call who are taking home an Edison Award this year, congratulations, and we look forward to celebrating with you in a few weeks. So today we have a fantastic presentation brought to you by Proper Propaganda. The goal of this roundtable is for you to walk away with a better understanding of PR and how it can best serve you. Jackson Whiteman and Boriana are partners at Proper Propaganda, a public relations agency that helps innovation companies from across the globe craft and spread their stories. Industry veterans with over a combined 40 years of experience in the field, they've helped startups, scale-ups, and large multinationals navigate the PR channel, build brand equity, and exceed their business goals. They are authors of the recently published book, The Tech PR Playbook, which each of you are going to receive a complimentary downloadable version today after the presentation. So the chat will be open for questions and contributions from the audience. Feel free to submit those in that chat box. And Jean will open it up to audience participation as needed throughout the call. And now I'd like to introduce you to Jackson or Boriana. Y'all can take it from here.
Thank you very much, Lindsay, and thank you everybody for attending. I'm just going to pull up, I'm just going to share my screen here for a second. Give me one sec. Everybody can see my screen, I hope. So we're going to talk today about PR, and we're going to talk about PR not so much from a kind of nuts and bolts DIY perspective. We're going to try and provide you with a more strategic perspective. And what I mean by that is much of what we're going to talk about is tailored to decision makers at innovation companies. So this is not, here's how you write a subject line for an email. This is not, here's the elements of a press release. This is a presentation about some bigger ideas around PR and how it works for innovation-driven companies. As Lindsay said at the outset, we are partners in an agency called Proper Propaganda. The agency's been in business for 12 years. And in that time, we've had the opportunity to work with a range of different companies. I would say that the commonality between our clients is that they come to us when there's some element of innovation. So we have worked with very big brands that you would know, like Esso or Turkish Airlines. We've worked with Xiaomi from China. We've worked with Chinese FedEx. We've also worked with a lot of startups, some that are almost fresh out of the garage, and we've worked with a lot of scale-ups and venture capital. So we've had the pleasure of working with SOSV and Hacks, who some of you may have been through those programs, some of you may know those programs. And yeah, we've just authored a book, called The Tech PR Playbook. It's on Amazon right now. It is free for Kindle version. The QR code in the bottom right is going to take you to Podbean. It's going to be an audio book. Feel free to grab that. If you have any trouble, any issues around either of those things, the audio book or the free Kindle on Amazon, just let me know. My contacts will be on the last slide and we'll get in touch. So just jumping into it a little bit today, a couple of very simple goals. I think the first thing we want to try and convey is what the purpose and what the role of earned media is for innovation companies. So we're not going to talk about all elements of PR. We're really going to focus on earned editorial media coverage. We're not going to talk about influencer. We're not going to talk about crisis comms. We're not going to talk about other parts of PR. We're really going to focus on getting earned editorial media coverage and what that can do for you. It can certainly do a limited range of things. It does certain things very well. It does certain things less well. Second thing, we're going to talk about the particularities of innovation media. So TechCrunch and The Verge and VentureBeat and all of those outlets that many innovation or tech companies want to get into are very specific kind of rare birds. They have very kind of particular quirks, particular predilections, things they like and don't like. And I think it's important for any innovation company that wants to go and get that earned editorial media coverage to understand this. Third thing, tech media only write 10 types of stories over and over again. When if you look at it carefully, if you look at your VentureBeats, your Mashables, your Inverses, whatever it is, tech outlets tend to write the same 10 stories over and over again. Those 10 stories have a specific purpose, a specific kind of business goal they serve. So we're going to give you a bit of a framework on that. And then I think the fourth thing we're going to do today, hopefully the fourth thing we're going to convey to you is understanding, okay, what are proper input levels if our company wants to pursue PR? We're going to give you info on how to screen agencies that you may want to work with. We'll talk a little bit about budgets and minimum input levels. So those are the main goals for today. As Lindsay said at the outset, I'm going to do my best to kind of monitor the chat and, feel free to ask questions as we go. First thing, what PR can do for innovation companies. I think the first thing to know about PR, particularly earned editorial media coverage, is that it is highly trusted. So many of you, I'm sure, have heard of Nielsen, the guys behind the TV ratings. Nielsen produces every year a trust in advertising survey. They've been doing this for several decades. It's kind of an old thing. And every single time, earned editorial media coverage ranks just below recommendations from friends in terms of trustedness. So it ranks far above banner ads or what you may see outdoor or what you see on TV, a 30-second spot. It's a very, very trusted element of communication. And so it has a very particular role it can play for an innovation company. I think the first and most important thing is brand equity. PR is really meant to kind of build your credibility, build the perception, positive perception, ideally, in the minds of customers, in the minds of the public. So brand equity is really the first business goal that earned editorial media coverage services, and it tends to do so quite well. It also does things for an SEO program. So many of you, I'm sure, are running active SEO programs. PR, earned media can do great things for SEO programs. And of course, that link back from the TechCrunch article is great, but what's especially great about the TechCrunch article is that search engines tend to like content that gets shared widely. So PR can really serve, earned media can serve that goal. Third thing, many of you have raised investment rounds. Many of you are probably thinking about raising an investment round at some point. Earned media coverage, again, because of the credibility it can convey upon a company, it can confer upon a company, is very good sometimes when you are attracting investors. We've done a lot of work with clients over the years, kind of pre-raising a round to try and get them into the press, to try and help the process of raising that B round or C round or whatever it is. Fourth thing, employee morale. Sometimes that earned media coverage can help boost morale. So if, for example, you make a consumer product and a guy like Brian Heater, who's the hardware editor at TechCrunch, a very known, trusted guy in the world of hardware, says that your consumer product is the greatest thing since sliced bread or whatever he may say, that can be a little boost for your employees, a little bit of external validation. It never hurts. PR can help with recruiting. We all know as people in the innovation space, there's a war for talent, obviously. That's a total cliche. Everybody wants to find engineers who can write code that sings and do backflips and all great stuff like that. It's hard to find that talent. Sometimes good earned media coverage about a company can be part of a recruiting process. Again, it's putting the right face forward. Sixth and final thing is sales. So traditionally PR, certainly when Brianna and I started our career, maybe I'm dating us here, B, PR was not always the best way to drive sales. And indeed, its record as a driver of sales, I think, is quite mixed. More and more what we see these days in innovation media, particularly around big calendar dates like Christmas or Black Friday, are these affiliate listicle articles where the outlet is taking a commission on every sale it drives on Amazon. So PR is more and more starting to help service sales. Those are really the main things that PR can drive. I think the main kind of business goals that earned media can kind of help with. And I think that's important to know. There's also a bunch of stuff the channel does not do very well, and there's a bunch of reasons that PR tends to fail. And we've seen these basically over the 12 years we've owned the agency. We've seen these kind of occur over and over again. First thing is, people sometimes misunderstand the nature of news. This sounds really facile, but the word news has the word new in it. And you don't want to go pursuing editorial media coverage if you don't have some element of newness to what you are doing. People who are making Me Too products that sell on Amazon that have been done before can do a great job with sales. We've all probably bought Me Too products on Amazon. That phone charger, that whatever it is, commoditized good that you buy that works. Works fine for that. Doesn't work well in terms of getting headlines in TechCrunch or Mashable. So I think make sure if you're going to pursue PR, you understand some of the certain nuances of the news business. One, things need to be new. Two, that things need to be a little bit that media have a predilection for kind of offbeat things and or things that are controversial. Second reason, sometimes PR programs fail. Media communication is a completely unique form of communication. So the way you're going to talk to your investors, the way you're going to talk to your customers, to your prospects, is very different than the way you're going to talk to the news media. And what I mean by that is essentially the media is a filter between you and your audience. And so when you're speaking through a filter, you got to strip away a lot of the hyperbole. You got to strip away a lot of the stuff that might be in your brand book. We love creatives, but sometimes the brand police get in the way of good PR programs. Third reason, sometimes PR fails to deliver in our experience, is that there are wrong ideas about input. So we have a lot of well-meaning, fresh out of the garage startups who come to us and they say, guys, I got $3,000, I got a month, let's go, let's do some PR. It's not going to work. There's a minimum input level, and you need to be above that minimum input level to see action. Fourth reason that sometimes PR doesn't work is that you get sold by some, graybeard like me, and then a bunch of younger, inexperienced people perhaps are put in charge of the program. It's a great way to make money die a painful death. You need to make sure that there are adults in the room with earned media. It's a very complex channel. Fifth reason, the wrong stories are pursued at the wrong time. So I get it. When you're fresh out of the garage and you've got this great new vision for an industry, you want to tell the world about it. You want to get that CEO interviewed so he or she can spread the gospel of their brilliant new vision for your category. That's not going to happen with an out of the garage startup. You need to build credibility. You need to pursue certain other types of stories before you get to that. Another reason PR tends to fail or can fail sometimes for innovators is timing. You don't want to launch the day Tim Cook's putting out a new product, right? It's pretty simple, obviously, but again, we've seen it be a problem over the years. And then the final reason, as I was alluding to before, is that sometimes people pursue earned media, innovators pursue earned media, and they have misconceptions about how tech media work. So as I alluded to, tech media, innovation media, are somewhat rare birds. They're somewhat strange birds relative to other categories. Tech as a media category is quite different than, say, fashion or politics or sports or some of the other categories that you've probably come across in your life. First thing is, tech media move like technology itself. What tech media care about, what they consider cool, categories that are hot or cold, that changes lightning fast. So we had a client working brain hacking tech where in January, we went out with a particular campaign and it was a massive hit. 7 months later, same client had had its day in the sun. There was very little media interest. The media had moved on from brain hacking tech in the space of 6 months. It happens in technology. Second thing that's kind of particular about innovation media, very, very elite driven. So in sports, in fashion, you hear, you may have seen, sometimes really small outlets or some little blogger can break a huge story. That tends not to happen in technology. In technology, big fish, particularly big fish, English language located in the United States of America, tend to set a global agenda. It's not to say there aren't big outlets in China, Israel, other places where innovation matters, but large US tech media have a disproportionate share and power to set the kind of media agenda in technology. It's an important point to make. Obviously, it means, and you know, what flows from that is where you should put your energy. Sometimes there's a gap with tech media between what they cover and what sells. And so many of you, I'm sure, have been to CES probably multiple times. Some of the stuff that gets covered at CES, you're like, well, what the hell are they thinking? This is a completely useless, kooky piece of crap. And that's tech media they tend to cover the unconventional, and they have particular things they like. Those things don't always match up with what sells well. So that's important to kind of remember. I think the holy grail in technology coverage, and an important thing to know about tech media, is that differentiation is really everything. So the first thing a tech journalist is going to ask, whether it's for a B2B software program, a consumer hardware product, whatever, is why is this different than what came before? And I think when programs don't work, that element of the storytelling is not in place. So differentiation matters immensely to tech media. So too, it's important to kind of remember, this is a very skeptical group of people. These are the outlets that were burned by Elizabeth Holmes. These are the people who have exalted, false gods. They wrote about Sega's VR headset back in the 90s that was basically vaporware. So there's a lot about tech media. A lot of journalists, particularly seasoned ones, are especially skeptical. So I think that's important for you to know in terms of, being careful and you got to know that before you go out. I'm going to pause for a sec. I was just checking the chat box. I didn't see any questions. If there aren't any questions, that is fine. I can keep going, but I thought I would pause and just see if anybody had anything before we carry on. It's okay if you don't. Okay, so I am going to keep going, I think, because I don't see anything coming up. Don't be shy if anything does come up. So we're going to talk a little bit about a framework, and we've talked about this in the book, but just the framework we've used and the framework we outline in our book. B's going to get into it a little bit around what tech media do and the kind of stories they write. So I'm actually going to turn it over to you, B, and let you kind of go through these elements. I'll flip through the slides as you go.
Hey, hello everyone. Really nice to be talking to everyone today. So as Jackson mentioned, we typically, in our experience, we identify 10 different types of stories that tech media cover. This is a little bit unconventional view of things, but we found that this is actually really key to success in your PR program, is about identifying and understanding what those 10 types of tech media stories are, and also when to pursue them, how, why, and what do you need, what is required on your part to actually have a successful media coverage in one or more of those 10 categories. And 10, as you know, is a special number. I'm sure everybody associates 10 with excellence, with something accomplished, with a perfect score. And we know, especially in sports, and we're not going to talk about sports, don't worry about that, but in sports, there's so many important figures that carry that number 10 with a lot of success. So now switching back to what matters here is the tech media. So we learned in our experience that tech media cover 10 types of stories over and over again. And what we're going to try today is we're not going to dig deep into all 10 types. It would take probably the whole morning for most of us. But just to quickly list them, we have general news story, we have the product review, the company profile, founder as a hero story. Then also the type of story that's recently becoming more and more popular is commerce listicle with affiliate links. Then, of course, data-driven stories, acquisition story, trend pieces, bylines, and the personnel stories. So today we want to focus on the 5 stories that we believe are the most important for tech companies. And they're actually important at different stages of where your company is, where your product is, and of course, what your vision is for future. So, and of course, please, if you have any questions during this brief presentation, please just post your question in the comment. Jackson and I will be checking. So starting with the number 1, which is a product review, which in my opinion, because I pitch a lot of these stories every day, I believe that this is really what builds the groundwork for your brand visibility, for your credibility in media and the public. This is where everything starts. So if you're a hardware company, or even if you're a software company that builds amazing apps, what we typically start with is the review of your product. Because I think it's safe to assume that when you're just starting out, unless you already built 10 companies before this one, it's quite likely that nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what your company does. So you need to, before you tell everyone how amazing you are and how amazing your personnel are and designers and engineers and all of that, you need to show what your team is actually capable of making, and you need to show that it works. You need to show that it solves the problem. And ideally, the problem is something that actually impacts a significant number of people. So kind of going back to just the way we think about these product reviews, they're very common stories. I'll give you a specific example. As Jackson, I believe, mentioned, one of the companies that we've been working for quite a long time now is Keychron. They're mechanical keyboard makers. We started with them when they were really just starting out. And in the past 2 years, we actually had more than 200 media pieces in media, especially tier 1 pieces. So thanks, Jackson, for sharing this article. So this is one of the most recent product reviews that we got for our client published at The Verge. A couple of things to point out here. This is, first of all, phenomenal review, and we loved it because even just the headline is something that this company, that Keychron, can reuse and reuse many times in their marketing efforts, in credibility building, in their branding, in all sorts of things. So The Verge is obviously a significant player in the tech media market, and specifically this reviewer is highly respected for his very honest, very fair and balanced reviews. So in other words, getting a positive review by this person at this outlet means a lot for Keychron as a brand. What led to this review and is really all the elements that are important when pitching product reviews, which is you have to have a working product. Ideally, the product is going to be in the production state, which means no missing cords, no semi solutions, and nothing really that you don't want to see in the published article. So anyone who is making a product, who has made a product and is satisfied that it's at the desirable level, can actually pitch this type of story to product reviewers. But the key thing is have your product ready for prime time. The way to, of course, that's not going to be enough to actually get the attention of the reporter. As Jackson mentioned earlier, the most important thing you need to point out in your media pitch, in your approach to media, is going to be differentiation. So this particular keyboard is not only different than other mechanical keyboards that competitors have on the market, it's also different than everything else that Keychron has made so far. So, and it's very, very clear in all the materials that we provided for the reporter. One other thing, when you've been in this hardware space for some time, you're likely going to build several products. Every time you pitch your product to a reporter for product review, every time is an opportunity to make that relationship with the reviewer stronger and to earn their trust. And in this particular example, this is probably the fifth or maybe the sixth story that this reporter and this outlet published about Keychron. Every time every time we communicate with them, our relationship gets stronger because we really only aim to provide them with the high quality sample and the timely information. So this is just one example. I'm sure you've seen a lot in your practice. If you had some interesting coverage for your products, if you got some interesting product reviews, please pop the link or the name in the chat box. We would love to see that as well. So there's so many examples of these, of course. And why is this important? Why is this useful for your brand? It's, of course, it can be very useful for sales. So don't forget to always include your the information where people can purchase the product. It's also can be really important for the employee morale. Like, imagine people working on building a product for 6 months or a year. When they get that third-party recognition and somebody at the position of relevance and good reputation tells you this is amazing, it means a lot. It does motivate people to work hard and to be creative. And of course, as I said, and we know one of the main benefits of PR is always in the brand equity, and these types of stories really that show that you are capable and competent to build something that can impress a difficult reviewer, someone who's looking at it with a lot of critical eye. That also means a lot for how much people are going to trust your brand. So moving on, I'm just going to quickly check the chat box. Okay, no questions so far, but feel free to pop them in anytime. So the second type of story we want to talk about is something that actually we've started seeing more and more in the last couple of years, and it's quite connected to the product review. And the reason for that is, so this affiliate, we call it affiliate listicle. You are maybe familiar with it by a different name, like a gift guide, buying guide, seasonal, any kind of, I would say that this is any kind of an article that lists or rounds up a couple of products. It could be more than a couple, it could be 100 products. Includes typically a good image, a short description. Sometimes it's also qualified by saying, for example, let's say we're talking about the Father's Day gift guide, and you have 20 products from massage guns to e-bikes. each product can also be qualified for exactly what type of a father this is. Let's say for the outdoorsy dad, and for the one who likes to stay home more, or something like that, which also in some ways that qualification also chimes in quite well with your brand, if it's, of course, if it actually fits what you want your brand to be known for. These types of stories always include a link where people can purchase the product, and those links are typically links for the Amazon pages, or the links for their affiliate program pages. So which brings us to what's really important when you are pitching this type of story. But before that, actually, I think we should mention, like, who is this for? Who would want to pursue this type of a story? What kind of company would want to pursue this kind of story, and who can actually benefit from this type of story in media? And in our experience, this is pretty much anyone who makes any kind of a product can benefit from this product, because in our experience, we've seen these types of stories really boost sales. So I think it's a pretty simple equation. If you want to boost sales of your product, you should pursue these types of stories. Of course, what do you need for it? Again, you need a product that's ready for prime time. Just like you needed it for the product review, it's a similar thing here. These types of stories can also follow a product review. So let's say if we go back to that review of Keychron keyboard, so once you send your sample to the media and they do a full product review, if they like the product, it's quite possible that this product is also going to show up again and again in different roundups or listicles. So for example, that keyboard will likely appear in graduation guides, like say something that, or back to school guide, something that a piece that will recommend 10 different products for students or something like that. So just something to keep in mind, that it's not always going to be your pitch for listicle that actually results in a listicle. This can it can have a little bit longer path to get there. But in any case, pitching these types of stories, as I said, you have to have a product ready. You also have to understand the seasonality of pitching these types of stories. What I mean by that is, if you are, for example, a maker of an e-bike, it's more likely that you're gonna get your bike in these listicles if you pitch it when the time is like, let's say, in any season but winter. If you are representing someone who's creating a ski gear and a ski tech, the right time for you to pitch this is going to be probably a couple of months before the winter season and ski season starts. So there's a lot to think about in terms of seasonalities, and focusing on the important sales dates like Prime Day, also any Boxing Day, then of course the seasons and back to school days. So it's really, really important to keep those in mind and build your affiliate PR program around that. What these stories can do for your brand, as I said, there seem to be quite a powerful tool, if it works, quite a powerful tool for sales. Also really helps your SEO and brand equity, and as with product review, also employee morale. Just a quick look at the chat here. I think we can move on to the third type of story we're going to look at today, which is a data-driven story. And data normally doesn't really sound too exciting, but I think that this is one of the underused types of stories, because, and I believe they're underused because they really require a lot of very careful thinking around what the data is telling us. So this is where PR teams really can do a lot with collaborating with data teams in your company. The one thing that's important here is that most of tech companies are collecting data in some ways. And sometimes that data can, especially if it's pointing to something that goes against the conventional wisdom, that's telling us something about the current trend that's quite unexpected. This is where it can really work well. And also if it touches on some of the pain points that a large number of people are feeling. So let's say, for example, you are you make some high-tech pillow or a smartwatch. You can probably collect data on people's patterns of sleep or movement or similar things, which is really what's on top of mind. Like a lot of people are obviously very aware of the impact of sleep or lack of sleep. So this is really on top of mind for a lot of people. What you could do is collect the data, survey your users, ask them questions, collect the data on the, let's say, seasonality of their sleep patterns or something that will point to that. And this can help you build a story, for example, that will say Americans sleep less in December than in any other month of the year. So this is a type of thing that media and a particular set of tech media would be interested in. And I'm not just like I made up that example. It's not the best example for sure. But this is the type of thing that, so when do you pursue this type of story? This would really come, I think, in your strategy at the point where you can collect data, where you have significant enough data set to actually be able to tell the story and for that story to be taken seriously. And when you uncover something that's unusual. So it does require quite a lot of work and quite a lot of collaboration across departments in your company and with your PR agency, but it's definitely worth it. And this is definitely something that gives your company, your brand, another perspective. So timing is incredibly important. Again, there are times in a year when you really want to talk about sleep. This is a time around holidays, families getting together, back to school, all those around exams for students. So this is when it becomes even more important. So definitely something to take into account. As with previous ones, it helps brand equity and SEO. So we have 2 more types of stories to go over. I will try not to put too much information out there. You can, and just a reminder, you'll be able to find details about each of these 10 types of media stories, tech media stories in our book. So company profile, just briefly, this is not the type of story that you pursue before you have the coverage for your product. So this is the kind of story that's very valuable for the company, for the brand equity. It's very valuable for employee morale, for recruitment, for investors. It's great if you get the positive company profile. But the truth about this is that it is incredibly, the timing is crucial. So if you're gonna pursue this type of a story, and if you're gonna pitch media with a story about your company that's just about to release its first product, you're gonna waste your time and resources on this because frankly, nobody really cares. Until you can show what you can do, you should really wait with these types of stories. But once you get to show the world what you can make, what you can create, how you can deliver to your customers. All those operational things, when they're in check, this is when you start thinking about how you're going to pitch your company stories. Some outlets are more interested in these types of stories than others. For example, Forbes is a great example. Fortune is another. There's also quite a few of these types of stories published by TechCrunch, VentureBeat. Sometimes these stories are also connected to the funding news, which is a different type of story, but it does really focus on what the company, but really focus on the success of a certain type of a company. Sometimes it's also about the culture and all the factors that lead to and that have led to success. So the key for this one, you have to first be successful. So as I mentioned, it's a great type of story, but of course, sometimes these stories are, we of course always hope for positive. Sometimes these stories can be negative, but there's a different section of PR to deal with those, which would go into reputational and crisis PR, and that's another something that you can find in our book. So which leads us to our story type number 5, which is a founder as hero. This is quite close to the company profile type of story, especially that it really requires an established company to even consider these types of pitches and stories. So typically the story about the CEO or a founder finds its way in media. Again, the types of media are typically Forbes and similar, Fast Company, Inc., etc. It usually means that the founder is shaking things up, doing things differently, bringing in like really innovative approach to conventional problems, things that have been dealt with in a certain way for a long time. It really is important to get that type of coverage. Your company also, the media should also be familiar with your company and familiar with the problems that are in the certain category. And then if your CEO or your founder is coming to shake things up, that really gives media and would bring a lot of interest. So one of the examples that we had for this, which is I find quite interesting, is when Kickstarter brought in a new CEO, Everett Taylor. So, and media was also quite familiar at the time with lots of problems that are typical for crowdfunding. And when this new CEO took his position, got a lot of press, specifically because he was seen by media and by public as someone who's coming to change things. And he was not only positioned that way in their PR program, which I can only assume, this is not, we haven't done this PR for Kickstarter, but not only he was positioned as a change maker, but his entire, also, he managed to convey the personality traits and opinions that really confirmed that story and affirmed that story for the media. So definitely a great example. This is just one article that was published about Everett Taylor. There's a bunch of others, and it's quite a continuous presence in the media. So in short, if you want coverage for your founder, for your CEO, first, let's get the basics done, the product reviews and those types of stories. And then when your CEO is ready to even be a little bit controversial and talk about innovative solutions for problems that a big category is affected by, that's the right time to start that type of PR outreach. That's it for these 5 types of stories. As I said, you can read about it in a lot of detail in the book, as we're going to be providing a free copy for everyone. Jackson, you can take
So
over.
I'm going to talk a little bit about staffing and inputs. Again, the logic here, this is a presentation. The book is for decision makers. Staffing and inputs are so often where PR programs go wrong, misconceptions about what is required, whether you're going in-house, whether you're going with an agency. So just going to get into that a little bit. I think the first question people ask all the time at innovation companies is, should I hire an agency or should I not hire an agency? And there's not really, of course, I have a hammer and sometimes everything looks like a nail. But I think it can really be done. Success with earned media, success with PR can come whether you're going in-house or whether you're going agency. There are certain companies that are doing things that are so complex that going the in-house route is best. Things that are so specialized, so technical, sometimes it's better for those entities to go in-house. Agencies tend to sort of work because agencies, offer an outside perspective. They can call BS on things if that's what's needed. But bottom line, whether you go agency or in-house, you need around, and that means it takes a few bucks. So people always ask us, what is a budget for PR? What can I do something with? And I think the answer we always give, which is kind of a wishy-washy, annoying answer, but it's the truth, is that budgets are based on input levels and on goals. And so what Coca-Cola is going to need is not what your startup out of the garage doing its first Kickstarter is going to need. And so, budgets vary. Again, based on sort of aggregate data from our agency, the minimum sort of input level we would look at from an agency is probably between 35 and 45 hours a month for at least 6 months. Again, if we're talking about one-off Kickstarters or something like that, it can be less, but we're probably talking 30 to 45 hours a month. And that's going to run you anywhere from 4 to 15K in terms of money. Obviously, agency fees are just like any job. The region matters. So if you're hiring people in really expensive labor markets or agencies from expensive labor markets, expect to pay more. Bottom line, though, I think expect 4 to 15K a month for an agency. Expect around 200K a year for an in-house team that's got somebody senior in the mix, and bet on needing at least 6 months of input to really show some traction. Why 6 months? 6 months because PR takes a while to fire up, because you need to iterate on probably a few story angles. There's going to be a discovery process that you have to go through. It's not something that can just be kind of cranked up at lightning speed. There is a process, and I would say 6 months is kind of a good amount of time to budget for PR. We get asked all the time, what makes a good agency? And I think there's a perception that agencies are kind of human Rolodexes, and I think PR agencies tend to contribute to this perception. They say, well, I know him or her, I can make a green cheetah appear on a snowy prairie or whatever. There's a whole bunch of reasons, but PR agencies are viewed as human Rolodexes. I think it's a wrong-headed view, a wrong-headed way of selecting an agency, just looking at their connections. I think another thing we've seen is that people sometimes make mistakes when they look at hiring agencies that just based on past work. So just because this agency succeeded for this smart TV maker doesn't mean they're going to succeed for you, the smart TV maker. So past work is important, but it has its limitations. I think in our experience, there's a few ways an innovation company should look at screening an agency. One question I think is around the billing model. So, PR, particularly tech PR, has often been billed as just time for money. So we're going to give you X hours a month, you're going to pay us. The problem with that, if you're seeking earned media, is that earned media is so varied, it's so finicky, it's so unpredictable. So I think if you're looking for a tech agency or an innovation agency for your innovation company, ask questions about performance elements. Somebody's asking if we work on a success fee or just a monthly stipend. We work with a mixed model. There is some guaranteed compensation any client pays us on a given project or within a given month, depending on billing setup. but we usually, particularly for gigs that are very earned media focused, as distinct from crisis or influencer or other things, if we're very earned media focused, we always have some element of the compensation, a good chunk of it, that is tied to output. And I think that's a good way of doing it because everybody has skin in the game, everybody's aligned, the agency has its money on the line, so it can call BS if it doesn't like the client's idea. It makes for better interface. Second question I'd ask, if I was an innovation company looking at an agency, who's on the account? As I said, often you get sold by people like me and then turned over to a gang of, pitchfork wielding interns who may do whatever. You need to make sure you know that. Third thing, vibe and work style. So, yeah, somebody's here saying, yes, the bait and switch. We've all been part of the bait and switch or seen it probably with our work at agencies. And sometimes we certainly, as I say, it's a very important question to ask. Who's going to be dealing with us? Who's our point of contact? Did they just emerge from diapers or whatever? Vibe and work style matters. So agency client relationships are kind of like marriages. And, certain marriages work together, certain don't because they don't have the same vibe. You need to sort of ask questions about an agency's organizational culture. Is it formal? Is it super reporting driven? Are people being, worked to death? Those are great questions to ask an agency. And I think just one of the questions, we don't get asked this very much, but I've always found it's a great question to ask any agency you may hire. What is your turnover like? So PR agencies, tech PR agencies in particular, are known for high rates of turnover. And turnover to me says that, hey, maybe we're running a salt mine here. Maybe we're running, this is the less than ideal work environment. Agencies with lower turnover tend to be happy places to work, tend to do better work for clients. I think also we don't get asked this much, but I think it's fair if you are looking at tech agencies to help your innovation companies gospel, ask them about their business related metrics. Good agencies are doing, in PR, the holy grail in kind of our financials is 20% net earnings at the end of the year. I think it's fair to ask that question. Agencies that are run efficiently are hitting those metrics, and I think are probably more likely to kind of help you overall. So I just want to go over main takeaways here real quick. I think the first thing is that earned media can be powerful. It can serve a range of bigger business goals. When it doesn't work, it falls into very specific patterns. We see this, we've been seeing this for 12 years in our work. You got to be aware of, how your misperceptions might impact a program you're investing in. And just a little self-awareness goes a long way, I think. As we said, innovation media are unique. This is a category very different from fashion, from sports, from other elements, other media categories. They only really write 10 types of stories. We talked about that. And I think the main thing is to understand particular types of stories serve particular business goals. Particular types of stories are available to you with particular preconditions. If you don't have those preconditions, don't go after them. Don't go chasing, that story about your CEO as some colossus astride the world kicking ass if you don't have product reviews, if you don't have some brand equity built up already. Whether you go in agency or in-house, you need to make sure you have budget to pay for adults to be in the room. As I said, probably $4 to $15K a month for an agency, depending on what you're doing, who's involved, where they are. Probably $200K a year for a decent in-house team. If you are going agency, make sure you ask questions beyond the obvious. And so for me, the obvious are, who do you know and what did you do? Well, ask those questions, but ask some other questions too around business metrics of the agency, just so you don't get screwed, just so you don't end up kind of in that bad marriage with an agency. That's us, as I said. That's our website. Proper Propaganda is the agency. Tech PR Playbook is the book. It is available for free right this minute on Amazon Kindle. And we also have an audiobook that's currently on Podbean while we wait for Jeff Bezos and co. to approve us on Audible.
We have a few questions, Jackson.
Sure. Awesome.
So if
Okay,
you
any
want
tips to
to,
accelerate the ramp up process? Yeah, look, so Rebecca's asking a great question. She's asking any tips to accelerate that ramp up process for a new agency and results? We don't have the 6 months to see results. Couple things. One, I don't think we're saying you need 6 months to see results. You'll hopefully see results. Again, I'm talking earned media here. I'm not talking about some other things. Hopefully you'll see results in 6 to 8 weeks. What can you do though, as a client? You can, one, provide a very kind of cogent, succinct package of materials for the agency to study on. This is particularly true if you're doing like, really crazy tech stuff. You can have people within your organization ready to deploy to educate the agency. So I am probably, as maybe you might even be able to tell when I was flipping through slides, the least technical person I know. You need to have engineers and people available to educate idiots like me who are not necessarily the most technical. And I think you need to, the more clear you can come to the table on what you do, and the more you can educate the agency on here's the category and how we see it, the faster you're going to see results. Does that make sense in terms of answering the question? I'll assume so. Okay, yeah, cool. Thank you. Any other questions? I guess we don't have too many.
we had 2 questions before that, Jackson. If you look at the chat, one was about negative news, and the other one about.
I didn't see it, so I'll let you. Oh, here we go. I'll let you handle it, B.
Oh,
negative
okay.
news.
No problem.
Oh.
So one question was by the perception is that the media prefers negative news. Could you please comment on that? Yes, we can comment on that for sure. So depending on I would say this really depends on the category where your business is in. I think that when it comes to tech, there's a lot of desire from media part to actually discover a new great product. So I firmly believe, based on my experience and years of experience working with media, that tech reviewers are really neutral to begin with. They're really curious. They're interested in your product. But they're also really skilled in recognizing bullshit, if you forgive me my language. So if you approach them with transparency and really clearly understanding what their goals are from that story, and typically their goals are to write a story that's going to be popular, that's going to be interesting to their readers, that's going to really appeal to their audiences. So I would say majority of times, I don't think there's a negative bias to begin with. And I think but I think at the same time, it's really important to know how to manage that relationship. So my advice is really just always be straightforward. Don't try to send the product and then have like media waste. You have to show that you respect their time and their efforts, is what I'm saying, and that you really respect them as intelligent beings who are going to figure out if something's not right. But definitely, I think that tech media are really neutral in their perception of the stories they're going to be writing. I hope that helps. Okay, let me see. Just a sec. So there was the other question about does your agency work on success or just monthly stipends? What's the risk of working on placement? The risk is real, but given that the types of companies we work with are also taking enormous risk by building their product, creating the company, and also hiring us to do their PR, we are willing to share that risk. We work on a hybrid kind of pricing system, which we have we receive a fixed payment to begin our work, but then most of our compensation is, yes, it's based on our performance. It's based specifically on the media coverage that we get for our clients. and we've been doing this for years. We take that risk very seriously, and we are highly incentivized to do everything we can to get positive media coverage for the client. And we do believe that this addresses a standard problem, standard issue with PR in general, which is quite often that people get very, very disappointed and burnt by PR agencies or PR experts that they hire, is because they do throw in a lot of money, and as we know, there is no guarantee for success here. That's the kind of industry we're working with. So we're trying to really be fair and to balance and share the risk with our clients. I hope
Thank you so much, Boriana. Thank you, Jackson. I'm sorry we're a minute over, but we're going to have this recorded, so I will send it out to all of the attendees. I'll also send that link to that book, so you guys can grab that. And if you do have any other questions or comments or anything, feel free to send them my way and I will share them as needed. So thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.